Hello and welcome back to the Life in Our 20s podcast. Do you ever feel like you're lonely and not much is going on in your life? Well, in today's episode, I'm here to tell you that sometimes that's okay. So stick around to find out what I have to say about this and why sometimes being lonely is actually a good thing. All right. Well, I will preface this by saying that today's episode will most likely be a bit of a shorter episode. I'm thinking maybe around 40 minutes, maybe shorter. And the reason for that is because the other episode for this month that I will be releasing is close to 2 hours, and I don't want you guys to feel overwhelmed with the two episodes. And there's also the fact that I am slightly busy at the moment. I have spent a lot of time on the short film doing rewrites, this and that, trying to source lenses and different um, equipment that I need. So I put less time into the podcast than I should. And that's my bad. That's on me. And so this is a little bit of a last minute episode. As you guys may have heard in the previous episode to this, we are celebrating Halloween at my house. My friends are going to come over, hopefully. And I am going to try to make a couple of pizzas for us. I've made it for my family in the past, but I've had to double the recipe because I will have more people coming over. And I'm also doing a couple of other things. So I'm trying to make some breadsticks, and I finished making the pumpkin pudding right now. And it should be ready for tomorrow, which will be Halloween. I'm recording this on the 30th. And I sort of am doing this last minute. Um, I spent more time doing other things that I probably shouldn't have been doing, and that's entirely on me. So please forgive me for that. I am only human, and sometimes I just decide to go with the flow and end up wasting some time. But anyway, the topic for today's episode, as I mentioned, is being alone and being lonely. And I do want to sort of make the distinction between being lonely and being alone. And I think that's something important that everybody should learn. Being lonely is very different from being alone. Now, being alone is okay. You can be on your own and not feel lonely, if you get what I mean. So that means essentially still keeping contact with, for example, your family and friends, maybe your coworkers, still keeping in contact with them, but you are physically alone. And it's okay to do that. It's okay to go out on your own and kind of just vibe on your own. That's just being alone. But being lonely is a dangerous thing. It's very dangerous at times. Um, I will say that being lonely is more so that feeling of not having anyone to go to or having somebody to do things with you. And that is an important distinction to make here. What I mean by being alone is okay is that there are times when you're not going to be able to have everybody show up and do the things that you want to do, right? So being an adult is sort of difficult in the way that you have to essentially get used to being on your own more often than you're used to. And what I mean by that is the the majority of people, not everyone, but the majority of people that graduate from high school, graduate from college, we are used to having people around us almost all the time. And those people keep us company, you know? It's as simple as that. And we may not have friends everywhere, but we do have people that understand us, like acquaintances, right? They understand what we're going through. They're there to make small talk. They keep company, and heading into the real world, sometimes it's a little bit more difficult to make friends. Um, Maybe you meet them through a coworker at work. Maybe you just have a random encounter at a bookstore, or you're running errands, you run into someone, you make them your friend. But it is a little bit more difficult to make friends for the most part. And it's okay to go off and do things alone. You may meet new people, but where I was going with this is since it's harder to make friends, and maybe your usual group of friends isn't, let's say, they aren't available to do the things that you want to do, or maybe they just don't feel like doing it. It's okay to go and do stuff on your own. I felt odd my first few times going off and doing my stuff on my own, running errands, buying groceries, doing stuff like that. I always needed to take someone with me. And if my friends weren't available, I'd take someone from my family, my mom, my dad, my younger brothers. And I still haven't gotten used to going off on my own. It's still something I struggle with. And I think I may have done an episode where I mentioned this previously, but it was more so like get used to doing things alone. And here, I just want to say that being on your own isn't that much of a bad thing. It's okay to be a lone wolf sometimes, as some people say. That sounds kind of cringy, though. It's okay to be on your own sometimes and just kind of vibe, hang out. If you want to go to the bookstore, just go to the bookstore on your own, crack open a book, read a couple pages. If you like it, take it home. You don't need to wait for your friends to do that. If you want to go and get a coffee, you don't need to go out with your friends. You could go on your own. And for me, I get this sort of like anxiety sort of thing where it's like, oh man, all these people are going to think I'm like a loser because I'm on my own. And, they're going to think, oh, this guy's so lonely. Poor dude. And that's just a weird way of thinking. I just think very weird. I have an odd mind. And it just kind of it stresses me out. It gives me like anxiety that these people may think that I don't have anybody to go out with and like do things. But it's not bad to kind of go off on your own. I will say that it also helps with recharging your social battery, kind of having a day for yourself. You go out and you do the things you want to do without having to make small talk, without having to worry about keeping the conversation going. You just kind of go and you vibe, You can listen to your music, not talk to anyone. You don't have to, make conversation with anybody. Maybe somebody will ask you a question or something, but you don't really have to engage that much. You just kind of go and you do your things and then you just go home, you know? And I do want to say, if you ever go out, like, let's say for like a week straight by yourself, and then you kind of start feeling like this kind of like dread coming on, and you're like, something feels wrong, maybe then you should contact some of your friends and see if they're open to going out with you somewhere. Because at that point, I would say that you probably need some human interaction. I've had that happen a couple times where I am just kind of on my own, chilling, and then it just hits me. I'm like, dude, I feel like super lonely right now, and I need someone to talk to. If that happens, call one of your friends, text them even. If they're available, go hang out with them. Any form of communication helps. But the best communication to get is face-to-face human interaction. And yeah, I mean, being alone is something difficult, but something you need to get used to and understand. We are very social creatures, but, you know, society has become so complex that we're not always available to go do things. And if you really want to go do something, or if you really have to go do something, it's okay to be on your own. And it's okay to, at times, feel a little bit lonely. Just don't let that consume you, you know. If you're feeling really, really lonely, go reach out to someone and talk, you know. But yeah, that's what I wanted to share about being alone. It's something you need to adapt to. And a lot of people are really good at it, and it takes them forever to ever feel lonely. And it seems as though they can go maybe months or even years before they contact any friends to kind of, you know, hang out again and, you know, essentially get rid of their loneliness. While for others, it kind of feels as though they can go no more than a day without hanging out with people, or else they feel super lonely. And that's something that we should also pay attention to when we hang out with our friends. Pay attention to the way that they talk to you, their mannerisms, see if anything changes, because it is a sad thing to see someone that is usually super bright and, like, you know, very talkative get very lonely, dark, and kind of like start secluding themselves from everyone else. And I think that's something that, like, you know, we should keep an eye out for, because sometimes it's hard to get yourself out of that rut. It kind of feels as though when you try to reach out to people and try to get rid of this feeling of loneliness that you have, they're not available, they're busy, and it kind of makes you feel like you're trying to invade their personal time, or you're trying to, like, you know, it's essentially like a feeling of selfishness. Like, these people are okay, they don't feel as though they need to hang out. Why am I different? Why do I feel so lonely while these other people don't feel lonely? I don't know if that makes sense to the listeners, to you listeners out there. But that's how I see things, you know, and it's different for everyone. But we should keep an eye out. If someone starts seeming a little bit more distant, a little bit more cold, like, you know, maybe talk to them, try to figure out what's going on, and try to, like, you know, find a solution for that issue of loneliness. And I don't know about the, like, you know, female demographic out there that may be listening, but for a lot of the dudes, it's very difficult to voice your feelings and your opinions, because a lot of us from a young age have been told to kind of man up, stop crying, stop, like, you know, spilling your feelings out to people, keep it in. And so it's a little bit harder to pick up on those little hints of when somebody is feeling lonely, you know? So we should try to keep each other's, like, you know, mental health in check. Like, you know, keep each other's backs and just try to help one another, because we don't know when we might end up, or if we might end up in a similar situation. And the purpose for this episode is because as of late, I I've been hanging out with a lot of my friends and kind of, like, you know, slowly but surely trying to kind of recharge a little bit. Felt a little lonely at times, like, the whole, and I don't know how other people do it, where they'll work like, 60-hour weeks or something, and they barely have any time for friends. That, like, my hat's off to you. Like, that is, you are insane if you can pull that off. But for me, work is just boring, and then you get home, you're tired, and then you go to bed, don't have time to hang out, and it's just a cycle, and you start feeling lonely. So then you got to reach out to friends and like let them know, hey man, you want to go do something? I'm kind of feeling a little bit lonely. And that is different from being alone. As I mentioned before, there's this certain dread that I can't really explain with words that you feel when you're lonely. And that's something that I hope people don't feel. Like, I don't want people to feel that, because it's a feeling that just, like, makes you feel sick internally. But yeah, it's okay to be alone, and it's okay to feel lonely as long as you understand why you're feeling lonely and understand what you have to do to get out of that. And if you feel as though one of your friends may be going through something like that and they're not really reaching out to you, reach out to them, because you don't know how bad it could get. And, you know, we don't want anything bad happening. We don't want their mental health to deteriorate and stuff. So, make that phone call. Don't be afraid to call and, like, let people know. And don't be that guy that kind of just ignores or downplays the person's feelings, because it makes the other person feel like shit. Um, Again, this is from personal experience. I don't know how it would be for the female demographic out there. From what I have seen, it seems as though women have an easier time sharing feelings, but I might be completely wrong. I mean, that's just me viewing from the outside. I'm a guy, and it's very hard for us to kind of have a heart to heart with each other. It's very rare. And when it happens, it's something nice, but it usually gets buried down again because we don't like talking about our feelings, and we don't like to bring up other people's feelings. And I feel like that should change. Especially with like feeling lonely. There's a lot of men out there that are feeling lonely. A lot of people our age, in our 20s, Gen Z, like, that are just feeling lonely. It's a loneliness epidemic out there. And we need to do something to change that, you know? And one of those things, as I mentioned before, is figuring out the distinction between being alone and feeling lonely. Because being alone a lot of the time is not bad if you don't feel lonely. If you're alone a lot of the time and then you go, man, I should probably hang out with my friends more often, but you don't really truly feel lonely, then you probably don't need to hang out with them any more than you already are. And it might actually invade some of the time that you have set for yourself, that you do need for yourself to kind of recharge your own batteries and run your errands and stuff and work on yourself. So it's an important distinction to make, being lonely and being alone. And it's something hard, because it's this sort of weird, as I said, feeling where it's like, man, I feel like just anxious being by myself. I feel weird and stressed. I feel sad. That's when you are feeling lonely. But if you're just kind of vibing and then you kind of realize that you're alone most of the time, but you don't really feel lonely, you're like, for some people it's like a freeing experience to be alone most of the time, then you're probably doing all right, you know? But do keep in check in case you start feeling kind of that dread. And yeah, I mean, that's pretty much all I wanted to say. this was a very impromptu, like just happened all of a sudden, sort of podcast episode. Didn't really have anything planned, and again, forgive me, that is my fault. But yeah, I mean, it's okay to be alone. Just don't be lonely. And, maybe throw a Halloween party or something. Do Christmas. Make up your own holiday with your friends. Like, some stupid anniversary that everybody can just hang out on. Like, And I say that because I'm having a Halloween party, and I feel like a lot of us probably needed it to hang out and kind of, like, talk to each other, catch up a little bit, and truly talk to each other. Because most of our hangouts are, like, going to the movies or hanging out at a store or something. We can't really sit down and have a real conversation. It's mostly us just talking about what we're seeing at the store, or, sitting silently at the movie theater, and then at the end kind of going over what we thought. But we never truly have a sit down talk, like, face to face, heart to heart, where we talk about what we're going through. And I feel like tomorrow with Halloween, the focus will be like, handing out candy to kids, watching movies, and like, having a good time. But there are those slight little moments where people will open up a little bit, let you know a little bit of their life, and it's something nice. It makes you feel less lonely, makes you feel more connected. And, for those of you that are going to be spending some of the holidays alone, some of you that are going to be spending Halloween alone, a simple phone call to somebody that you know, somebody that you love, that's just enough to, like, brighten that person's day and maybe brighten up your own day as well. And it's such a simple little gesture, but it's enough to show the person that you really care about them, It demonstrates that they're still on your mind, or like if you get that phone call, it demonstrates that you're still on their mind and that they care about you, that you're important to them. Because if not, they wouldn't have thought of you and they wouldn't have sent anything, So even if it's a simple little Happy Halloween, Merry Christmas sort of text or whatever, it shows that you were in the back of their mind somewhere. So you should feel less lonely. There's people out there that still feel a connection with you. And if you guys ever feel lonely, like, just reach out. I know there's not a lot of listeners out there, but if you ever feel lonely, you can also just comment or send a message through the Threads Instagram, or like, as I said, leave a comment on the Spotify. And I can definitely just send back a text, at least for now. Who knows when if this podcast ever grows larger, I might not be able to handle replying to a lot of people. But for now, if you want to reach out, I'm there. I like being there for people. So don't be afraid to reach out. And, surround yourself with people you love as often as you can if you feel really lonely very often. I know it's something difficult to manage with like your schedule and stuff, but it's very helpful. Keep your mind off things. It's kind of like if you kind of avoid thinking about loneliness, then you won't feel lonely. Surround yourself with positive thoughts, positive people. And yeah, it's a tough world we're out. It's a tough world out there that we're in. And it's getting tougher and tougher every year. So stay safe. If you feel lonely, reach out to people. I know I've said that like a million times already, but trust me, it's important. There are people out there that feel lonely and then they do things that damage them and damage other people. And that's all I will say on that. I don't want to make this, depressing. But yeah, and if you can't hang out with people, like, maybe as I said before, pick up a hobby. You can meet other people through the hobby. You can just take your mind off things for a little bit, and it'll help you get through that loneliness for, like, a short amount of time. It's not a permanent fix, but it's something that will help you, like, in the long run. It'll help you kind of manage. And that's what I've done in the past. Kind of have a hobby to take my mind off things. And, for those of you that kind of need a mental reset from people, it's okay to just kind of take a break from people. Just let everyone know, because you may not feel lonely just like, leaving for maybe a month or two and having a little bit of a mental reset. But some of your other friends may feel lonely, and they may feel a little sad that you kind of ditched them without notice. So just let them know, hey, I'm feeling kind of stressed. I need a little bit of a mental reset. I'm going to leave for like a month off social media. If you text me, I may not respond unless it's like a really bad emergency or something. I really need time to myself to figure things out. That'll show them that, like, you understand that they might need you. Like, they might need you to hang out with them and stuff. And it shows that they care and that they want you to feel like noticed. Like, if my friends kind of just left and didn't let me know anything, I would go, dang, they probably don't want to hang out with me anymore. Or like, I just go, why aren't they responding? What's going on? And I'd start to feel lonely, like, but when they give you sort of like a heads up, hey, this and this is going on. Maybe I have some family issues, or like, there's some stuff going on. I need to take a break. I might not be able to hang out that much. That makes sense. And, it shows that they're considerate. Not only are they trying to better themselves in their personal situation, they're considerate that you may feel left out. Like, since they're not going to be able to hang out with you as much. But they care about you enough that they are willing to send you a text or call you and let you know what's going on. And, it's just all about communication, man. It's all about communication. It's something super important. And it's like, something that we all need to learn. Something that we do learn eventually, but especially like in the early stages of like adulthood, it's like our life is all over the place. We mishandle things. We learn from our mistakes. We burn a lot of bridges, build back new ones, But, it's okay. You'll make it out. I'm currently, faking it till I make it. You can do it as well. I always say, if I can do it, you can do it, because I'm one of the biggest idiots out there, and somehow I'm still alive and still trucking along. So yeah, I know I've been kind of blabbering on, not really saying much. I'm saying a lot with really, like, what does that saying go? It's like I'm saying a lot without really saying anything at all. It's just me repeating the same thing over and over and over again. But, repetition's good. Maybe this will get through your head that, it's okay to reach out. And I'm honestly very tired at the moment. I suggest for anybody that kind of feels lonely, start cooking food. And that seems a little strange, but like, start cooking food, because then if you get really good at it, you can host some dinner parties, or like do a potluck or something and have a bunch of friends come over. And then they'll always be like, dang, let's go to so-and-so's house because they're really good at cooking and I want them to teach me. You have like a cool little sort of like at-home cooking class. Just imagine that. Hobbies. going back to one of my previous episodes, hobbies helps with this. And yeah, that's probably why I enjoy cooking so much, because it kind of brings people together, learning things from different cultures, different people. And food opens up the heart, especially when you're lonely. Like, you ever feel like so sad, so lonely, and then you have some of, like, let's say your like parents' home cooked meals, like a warm stew or a soup or something, maybe like a traditional dish, like, from your culture or something, and it just like, just like fills you up with life again, like this warmth, this brightness, and you're just like, dang, I feel at home. Food also helps loneliness. Just don't go overboard, because you're gonna end up like me, gaining a solid 15 pounds from eating. And that's not even a joke. That's like, I've done that before. Uh, if you're going to eat, go hang out with a friend and eat. Like, don't make it a drown my sorrows in ice cream sort of thing. Go out with friends to eat, and then, like, let the wind take you wherever it's gonna take you. Get rid of that loneliness, that depression. We don't want it to turn into depression and gets bad. So, I hope y'all have been doing well. I hope y'all have had, maybe not a fun time, but like, I hope you've had a good time. Doesn't have to be great, just good, It's hard to find great nowadays, but I hope y'all are at least having a little bit, just a tiny little bit of fun out there. And I hope that you guys are, surviving and thriving out there. There's not many of you listening, but for those of you that are listening, I love y'all. Y'all make it so that I feel a little bit less lonely. I'm just talking to a microphone in my room, looking straight at my computer screen right now, but even as I'm recording this, I feel like, y'all's presence. All two of you that always listen to my podcast episodes, and I say that jokingly. The last one performed a lot more, a lot better than I expected. It was like 6 streams or something, but hey, that's something, and I'm proud of that. So thank y'all for sticking around and listening. I know that I don't really have the most interesting topics to talk about, but it helps. Like, it helps. And if y'all want to start a podcast with your friends, go and do it. It helps the loneliness. Like, it gives you a reason to hang out more. And it gives you something to do, take your mind off things. So, yeah, that's all I wanted to say for today. And I'll just end things off by saying that it's a tough world out there, but there's resources, there's people out there that'll help you. You just gotta reach out. And I'll give you guys a little bit of an update. I received my gimbal today. After this, after recording and editing this episode, I'm probably going to go and mess around with it for a little bit, and then go back to preparing for Halloween tomorrow. And I feel like the short film is going to come together nicely. I have some people showing interest in helping me out, and I'm thankful for them. So thank you all, if you're listening, for showing interest in one of my dreams, one of my hobbies, and thank you for reaching out and letting me know that you're interested. And thank you to everybody that has offered some advice and offered your experience to me, because I'm very new to this, and I'm thankful for anything that I can get. It's a little bit of a dream come true to be able to have something in mind and finally be able to start chipping away at it, start working at it. And I know it's going to be a long road ahead, but I'm glad to be able to have the resources to make this happen. And I hope one day y'all can see what I have in store, and hopefully y'all enjoy that short film. We are planning on filming as soon as possible, as soon as I get all the rewrites done and all that. So yeah, another update. We are, if I check my phone right now, we are like 2 or 3 views away from breaking 100 views on YouTube. I know we hit more than 100 views already on Spotify. I believe we are at 114 right now, if I'm not mistaken. Thank you all for listening, by the way. I'm very thankful for that. Yes, 114 on Spotify, and 97 now that I'm looking at it on YouTube. So thank y'all for listening. That's more than 200 views already combined. So thank you for that. And let's break 100 on YouTube, guys. Maybe once I drop this podcast episode and the previous one to this one, the Halloween episode, maybe then we'll break the 100 views on YouTube. And here's to 100 more views. I'm not in it for the money or stuff. I just want people to listen to my stuff, and that sense of community that I was talking about in the last episode. That sense of community that I feel like we're missing. I'd like to have that. Even if it's online through the internet. It'd be nice to have that sense of community. And yeah, I guess I'll be leaving the podcast episode here. It is a little bit of a shorter one. Forgive me again for that. I know I've said that like 3 times already. Forgive me for that. Next month, we'll see how that goes. Since I will be doing a lot of rewrites and maybe some filming for the short film. And, share this with anybody that you think would enjoy. If you think that this is worthy for their ears, make sure to follow the Threads and Instagram if you want for this podcast. That's Life in Our 20s, Life in Our 20s on both Instagram and Threads. You can listen to us on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and Amazon Music, as well as YouTube. So make sure to share that with as many people as you know. If they would benefit from listening to this, or even if they just have fun listening to this guy talking to a microphone in his room by himself. So again, I hope y'all stay safe. I hope y'all have been having fun. I hope y'all have been surviving and thriving. Please stay safe out there. And once again, if you feel lonely, reach out. And if you're alone, it's okay to be alone for a bit. Everybody's alone for some time in their life. Just don't let it become overbearing. Don't let it become a factor of your life that you can't control. Make sure to hang out with your friends when you can. And with that, I'll leave the episode here, and I'll see you guys in the next one. See you next time, and I love y'all.